Yay! So I've devised a way to kill myself. Yes, I have. Alright. So when I planted this corn, I'm going to show you what I got here. When I planted this corn, I know people are probably tired of me talking about this corn, but I planted the corn, I waited a few days, and I came back in, and I put my herbicide down, my residual herbicide, and we didn't get rain for a long time, like 2 weeks, better than 2 weeks. I think it was like 15, 16 days. We didn't get rain, and I started to get some grass coming up, and I had to go to North Carolina. That was in the end of May, beginning of June. So after a week of being in North Carolina, my dad was going to spray it, and he had problems with the sprayer, couldn't get it to work right, and I ended up coming up and spraying this corn. Okay, so I sprayed glyphosate and it, Roundup, I guess you want to call it, and I still did not get the complete control that I was hoping for or expecting. And at that moment, when I got up here, I thought to myself, I've planted this corn too thick for the weather we're having. It was dry. And then we had a little bit of rain, and that caused the grasses and weeds to explode. And if you know anything about high population corn and dryland, on dryland corn, is that you have no control over your moisture. It's all left to the gods of the sky, if you want to say it that way. So anyway, I'm like, I have planted this too thick. I'm at 37,700. So just say somewhere between 36 and 37,000, because I had my corn planter, it's 45 years old, and I'm going to do a little bit different work on it this coming winter, because I wasn't happy with the placement. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So if you look here, you got pretty okay spacing, but then it gets a little wide there, and then there's a together, and then there's three pretty quick, and then there's those three, and then then you get a double down there, and then a skip and a double and a skip and a double. It's kind of not placing the seed where it should. And because it was really, really dry, I had some stalks that didn't even come up. See right there? You should be able to see that space right in there. So, and it's pretty evident that I need to redo my meters. Like right here. Here's a double, right? And then there's a space. So if this one here was here and this one here was there, it was fine. It would have been fine. So I'm like, okay, so I've planted this stuff at 37,700 plants the acre according to the chart. But it seems like it's thicker, but I did the test, 30-inch rows, 17.5 feet, and counted the seeds, which is 1/100th of an acre, and I ended up with 37 stalks, or 1/1000th of an acre, whatever the hell it is. 37 stalks, which gave me my count at 36, 37. I did it in a couple of spots. So it's there, it's right there. The problem with dryland corn and doing that is you have got to have a lot of moisture then. The fertility is here. There's no issue with fertilizer. There's none. I mean, you can look down these rows or in here, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's just no yellowing of any leaves. The lower leaves are still here. They're still pulling sunlight. They're still the photosynthesis is there. Now, when I planted it, it was really, really dry, and like I said, a lot of them didn't come up. Not a lot of them, but there was a fair amount that didn't come up. I would say probably 1%. 1%. So that's really not that much, but it was actually a blessing that they didn't come up. But then when it started to rain, they came up. And then you get these little spindly guys. I'll show you when I find one. They've all pretty much caught up by now. Here's a late one right here. You can tell because it's just all the other silk is dead here, but this one here, this was a little bit later. It is going to form an ear. Surprisingly, it's going to form an ear. I've got coons in here, raccoons. Not, if you're from Australia, it's a slur to use the term coons. Here in the United States, they're raccoons. This is where I ran it over with when I was spraying. And this is what a late started stalk of corn looks like. It's terrible. But anyway, so to my point where I thought that I had overpopulated it, and if you do this experiment and you want to go, and it's not really an experiment, 37,000 is not a terrible number. It is not a great number for dryland corn, and I took the risk. I knew I was, oh, I got a tick on me, the little bastard. I knew I was taking a risk when I did it. Oh, what in the hell? I knew I was taking a risk when I planted it. I thought, you know what, this is really pretty thick. I should be somewhere around 34, 35. Last year I was 34, 35, and I had all of these double ears. Like this stalk right here, double ears, right? So this ear is going to rob from this ear, and this ear is not going to produce it to its full potential. At least that's generally the consensus of it. This here was bitten off by a deer, but here's the secondary ear, and it's filling in just nicely. So when we were down in North Carolina, it rained and rained and rained. And my whole point in doing 37,700 was to avoid this crap, right? This crap, because I wanted these ears to go. Well, apparently these two varieties that I've planted, because I've only got 300 acres, and I did it with two varieties. Last year I had like 5 varieties, and honestly, the two best were the 106 day was the best. This is a 100 day, which I was told was to be the best, and the guy that I sold the seed or gave the seed corn to plant, he said it was really good. So that's why I settled on the 100 and the 106 day. This is 100. And I guess these varieties are really just, and I'm going to step in here. It is a jungle. Don't get me wrong. It is a jungle here. So here's a late bloomer when it came up later from moisture. But these ears are everywhere. And I cannot, this variety just, it wants to throw a second ear. Now there's enough fertilizer on here. Honestly, there's enough fertilizer on this crop. I say there's enough to grow it twice. There's not really enough to grow it twice. I'm gonna walk on down here to the other end. This is where the two sets of 12 split. I got a little wide. I was setting up the GPS here. And, but anyway, if you look at the ears, they're just gorgeous. They really are. So now I'm going to get to the point where I felt that I was in the middle of a disaster. So it dawned on me when I sprayed it that this may be too thick for dryland corn, because if I run out of moisture, it's going to curl and it's going to suck every drop of moisture out of the ground. And because it's so thick that they're just not going to produce anything at all. They're just not going to produce anything at all. And that was my fear. I'm like, oh no, I have screwed myself. And now if I'd have planted at 32 to 34, and we got a dry spell, at least the ears would be a little bit bigger. And maybe these doubles that drive me nuts would have produced. And I was getting a little scared. Well, last night we had a storm come through, and it dumped on us pretty good. I think there was 1 7/10 inches here on this farm. And what I noticed 5 days ago at the other farm, one of the other farms, was that where the rows are, I'm going to get out of this field here. Give me a second. And this is down here. The ears are just I'm impressed with my stalks until you get to the edge here. It's a little weak here. The deer are picking it apart. They're just destroying it. Look at it. That's deer damage. They're just tearing this up. So the other day I was at the other farm and I got into the field a little bit and I could see where the rows of corn were, that it looked like it was dusty. It was dry, bone dry. and the middle of the row still had plenty of moisture. And I was like, you know what? We haven't gotten out of the woods yet, because these stalks are pulling so much moisture out of the ground just to feed that ear and the natural evaporation. As you can see, the color of these leaves are just incredible. They're healthy. They're healthy. They're really healthy. There's no spots. There's nothing. This is not healthy because the deer keep eating at it and pulling at it. And but no, the stalks and everything are super, super healthy. My fear is moisture. So I've already made the decision. Even though I know this is going to yield pretty good, I don't have any idea what it's going to yield. I know what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for an average yield of somewhere around 250 bushels. An average yield, which would, some of the corn's going to produce 300, some of the corn's going to produce 200, and in the center lies my 250 bushel average, which is what I'm looking for. We'll go up to the next field here. So, but I need that moisture. I need that constant rain, that constant once a week, 1.5 inches of rain. And it looks like we're gonna get it, but yeah. So next year, I've already made the decision, and let me get past the equipment here. I've already made the decision that I am not going to plant it as thick as I did this year. It's just too worrisome. And I'm actually going to cut I'm actually going to cut the population down, even if it does yield 250 bushel average. Even if it does, I'm still going to cut it down. Just because I think it's too close. And we've had 2 rather wet years, and now this is 106. The one that we were just in was a 100, but this is a 106-day variety here. And here's one of those that didn't come up. I'll get into the interior here, and you'll see that. Maybe you'll see it's pretty dark, but you can see how thick it is in here. Nice thing is we actually got some brace rooting. Last year we didn't get brace rooting. Here's one of those spindly shaded out ones, because my corn planter needs a little more attention than what I've been giving it. Oh my God, 24 rows is a long stretch to go through on 30 inch. Okay, so here we're going the other. Oh my God. So I've never been in this part of the field. Holy smokes, this is thick. Let me get over here. Maybe this is a thinner spot. The ears are filling out really nice. No matter what, I'm going to be plagued with these double ears. Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, but the moisture is good here. It is really good here. So I think I'm going to be all right, but I'm going to cut the population down to 32,000 the next go around, just because that'll give me 5,000 less plants to the acre, give it a little more space, a little less shading out in the if we get a dry start like this. This is shaded out. This is a dead stick. This is just taking nutrients. It's not going to do anything for me. Here's another one. The deer got it, pulled it off, pulled their no ear on there. Deer came in here and got it. Here's a late bloomer, a couple of them. So these here, they didn't come up until later, and there's quite a few of them here. They just, I don't know. They just did. At least we're pollinating still. I'm itchy as hell. Oh my goodness. I'm sure somebody's wanting me to pull a husk back. Here, this one looks like a good one. All right, this one looks about as good as any. So I'll just pull it back, and this just ruined my yield. Let's see what the, yeah, it screwed up my average. So let's get over here to the stack wagon, and we'll take a look at this guy. Not a bad looking ear. It's pretty good size. It's gonna be about 8-9 inches long. It's gonna elongate because of a, let me hurry up here on the stackety stack wagon. Okay, so this is about 9.5, 10 inches from the tip to my thumb. So we're looking at a 9-inch ear. Pollination looks pretty good. Yep, there's a skip. So I don't know if you can see, the pollination looks pretty good. There's a couple of blanks here and there, but they'll fill in as she goes. Now let's get a row count. I got to do that again. That's shocking. Last year I had 16s. These are 20 row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It's a 20 row ear. And we'll do the old Jeff Ramone trick. So we'll start somewhere up from 4 up. So we're looking at 40, 44. So I started up 4 from the bottom, which I didn't have to, but let's just say this is somewhere between 40 and 44. 40 and 44. So let's go with the split the difference scenario. At 42 times 20. So 42, that's 420, 840 kernels, right? 42 times 2, it's 840. 42, 400, yeah. 820 kernels per, at 30, now this is just a grab, so I don't know whether that's going to be every one of them. It may be. I doubt it. But if you take that ear, actually tastes really good too. A bit chalky though. Anyway. Alright, so I don't have the formulation at hand as to, you know, an estimated yield count. There's no point in estimating the yield because we're nowhere as close to the end game here at the end of the road. We're getting there though, and it's looking really good, obviously. And it's always good to walk your fields. I know that there's some people out there that don't walk their fields and they don't know what's going on. At this point, there's nothing I could do pro or con to this field other than fly on a fungicide, but I don't see anything out there that is showing me that there's even the remote chance that there's a fungus in there. So what would it boost my yield? 4 or 5 bushel to the acre, possibly, maybe not even at all. If I had 1,000 acres, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 bushels would get me excited. But for 300 acres in tight quarters like that, nobody's going to fly it on. And I don't know that I'm not going to risk it. There's just no need for it. It just doesn't need to be done. The one thing that could have been done was a little better weed control, but that I wasn't around, and those are the risks we take when we take off to do custom work. And that's the end of, that. So I won't be going back into these fields for a while. There's just no need to. I do have one more farm that I'd like to get onto and take a look at. But, just not a priority. not a priority to worry about it. I got a lot of hay that needs to be made. And today I'm going to go pick up some dry fertilizer because this guy has to go put fertilizer down on his hay ground. Yep, we got rain coming, and I got several hundred acres off, several hundred acres that are baled and stacked, and I just need to get fertilizer back on them because, that's just the business, the nature of the business. But anyhow, as far as the fatal mistake, it isn't a fatal mistake yet. It could very well be a fatal mistake if it stops raining, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So we're looking at a pretty good crop of corn. Like I said, I'm looking for a 250 bushel average. That's what I was fertilizing for. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm hoping for. If the weather continues on with this hot and wet weather that we're having, then yeah, that's a very distinct possibility that I'm going to exceed my goal. And that's just part of why I'm showing this, is that I've set a goal, a very high goal, or a very high bar. That's kind of the way I am. Set a high bar, and at least you're going to get to the bottom of it. If you go over the top, then you'll be ecstatic. And I always set a high bar, because if you set a low bar, you've already defeated yourself. You can only ever be a winner. And in this life, we're not always winners. Sometimes we're the biggest losers, and I've lost a lot at times, and this year could very well still be one of them. The faucet could shut off, and what you see on those ears could just, the end of it will just dry up, and you'll only fill the bottom 6 inches of each one of those ears, and you're getting 150 bushel to the acre, barely covering your costs. Barely covering your costs. So, yeah. Oh, and on a side note, the fodder is more than likely not going to be going to the mushroom barns. I think they've discovered that, at least the ones that I deliver to, they've discovered that is not as true of a benefit to produce compost with fodder as they thought that it was. I know the first one dropped last year, and the second one is thinking about it now, so the fodder may not be a thing for mushroom production, but I still have an outlet for it, so we will just let it sit out there until, say, January, February, and we'll chew it up and get it where it belongs then, and then we'll seed in Timothy and frost seed in Timothy after I get that off, because that's the plan on some of this acreage. Not all of it, but some of it. Some of it's going to have either rye or wheat even. I may plant wheat. Yeah, I haven't planted wheat in years, but I may plant wheat. I don't know. I'm not on board for that just yet. I just don't feel that there's enough money in wheat to do that. But that's the plan. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow, because there's the beginning of this video was I devised a way to kill myself. It's true, and that there's a whole video in itself that stems from that. So just stay tuned for tomorrow. Thank you.